On Wednesday, a Meta spokesman said Facebook and Instagram will block all news articles in California if state lawmakers pass a bill meant to funnel money from the tech platforms to media organizations. The California Journalism Preservation Act would essentially tax the advertising profits platforms make from distributing news articles. Under the measure, some 70% of the money collected from the so-called usage fee would support newsrooms throughout the state. The bill's sponsor, Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks, a Democrat who represents Oakland, argues that the measure could provide a lifeline to local news organizations that have seen advertising revenue plunge. As news consumption has moved online, community news outlets have been downsized and closing at an alarming rate, Wicks said at a hearing on the bill earlier this month, pointing out that there's more than 100 California news organizations that have gone under in the past decade. But now Meta warns the legislation would make the company block the sharing of news articles in California on Facebook and Instagram. The company argued that the bill would mostly assist out-of-state sites under the guise of helping news publishers in California. Andy Stone, another spokesman for Meta, said on Wednesday that if the Journalism Preservation Act passes, we will be forced to remove news from Facebook and Instagram, rather than pay into a slush fund that primarily benefits big out-of-state media companies under the guise of aiding California publishers. When asked how exactly the act would force Meta to stop distributing news articles, Stone said, "It's pay or remove the news. Our hand is being forced." Danielle Coffey, the executive vice president of the News Media Alliance trade group, criticized Meta for threatening to block articles in the state of California, saying the LA news industry would benefit from having tech platforms pay their fair share. Facebook and Google have developed something of a predictable response to efforts attempting to make them pay the media industry for articles. They aren't empty threats neither. Facebook briefly blocked news articles in Australia over a similar measure that required tech companies to pay publishers for news content. Google said it would pull its search engine from the country before a compromise was struck. Lawmakers in Washington floated a plan last year with the goal of helping news outlets negotiate with tech companies, but Facebook stomped its feet and said it would yank news from the platform nationwide. Canada is getting a taste of it too. There, the tech giant says they're ready to pull the plug on news content if a similar measure is enacted, and as a test, Google has even blocked news articles from searches for some users. While tech companies and publishers squabble over legislation, many news publishers have started pivoting away from social media altogether and placing the focus on newsletters, podcasts, and subscription-driven models. The media industry has been hemorrhaging jobs for years. Some 37,000 newsroom jobs disappeared between 2008 and 2020, and while many factors have contributed to the news industry's troubles, a significant blow has been delivered by the tech industry's dominance over online advertising. According to figures provided to NPR by Insider Intelligence, services owned by Meta or Google have collected nearly 70% of digital advertising revenue made in 2023. In Australia, Facebook and Google eventually buckled and reached deals with news publishers, and Bill Gruskin, a professor at the Columbia University School of Journalism, who has studied the Australian law, found that it generated nearly $150 million for news organizations. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation was able to hire 50 new journalists in underserved parts of the country as a result of the law. California is the first state to attempt to replicate the Australian model, and experts who study the news industry says while the Australian news landscape is distinct from the US, given how concentrated it is, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp controls more than half of the market. Many other states will be watching how the shutdown in Sacramento plays out. In California, struggling publishers have come out strongly in favor of the bill, yet others fear the California legislation could have unintended consequences that end up hurting the news outlets it aims to help. For instance, media analyst and publisher Ken Doctor has argued that bad actors with sites peddling misinformation could game the system and end up getting funding. Another worry would be that the bill would supercharge lurid clickbait headlines from sites angling to get a slice of the new pot of money, or channel money to hedge fund owners that have cut newsrooms in pursuit of profits. He told the LA Times, "I applaud that the legislators want to help the local news business, but I think what they really need is a much deeper and wider understanding of the mechanics and nuances of how that business works." Media scholar Amanda Lotz, who teaches at the Queensland University of Technology, told NPR that the business model for journalism is collapsing broadly, but she said it's not fair to only blame big tech companies for the media industry's struggles. John Wibby at Northeastern University said he agrees, but he also said that if California can force big tech to the bargaining table with news publishers, it could, even in a small way, prop up a local news market which has been under siege. He was quoted as saying, "Such deals will not save the news industry, but they could contribute a new, reliable stream of revenue to support news." And then he continues, "I hope that social platform companies can see it in their interest to support the underlying democratic societies that, after all, are the bedrock of their commercial markets." And to think that this all started when